Hello everyone, welcome to Tutorials by Dacade. My name is Dacade, and today we're going to work on interactable objects. Objects that the player can interact with by walking up to them and hitting a specific button. But before I get into that, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, as I have videos like this coming out all the time. With that out of the way, let's begin. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to pull a sign out into our game here. So we're going to need to go to art. We are going to find our overworld, and in the overworld we need to find one of the signs. There's a lot to go through here, so make sure you're not passing them up whenever you see them, because whenever I was doing this in a test run, I spent a good 5 minutes, but here are all the signs. But yeah, I spent a good 5 minutes because I kept scrolling right past and not paying attention. But we're going to grab this guy, and we're just going to bring it out to the field somewhere and drop it in. The first thing we're going to do is just change the name of it to sign, and then we are going to bring it onto the objects layer. And I like numbers to be somewhat reasonable, so 3.5 and then 12.5. There we go. So now that that's out here, we can zoom in a little bit on it. One of the things I like to do is to try to keep things organized. So this is room 00. So we're going to go to 00. We're going to right click on it. We're going to create an empty, and we're just going to put objects. And then we're going to move the sign and the pot into those objects. We're going to click back onto the sign. We're going to add a component. We're going to do a 2D box collider. We're going to edit it so that way it's the size of the sign. The bottom of this one needs to come up just a little bit. There we go. Then we're going to add another 2D box collider to this. We're going to make this one a trigger. And let me take a look at my notes to see how big I made this. I want to say I made it 7.5. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so 2.75 for the size of that on the X, and then 2.75 on the Y. However, from the top, I'll drag that down to about there. So now that we have that stuff out of the way, we can actually start working on scripting this. So let's go over to our scripts folder, our objects. Let's create a new folder for Interactable. And then we'll go into that folder. We're going to create a new script, and we'll just call that Interactable Object. All right. So once that is done, oh, Unity's kind of doing its thing here. There we go. We can go to the sign, and we can just drag that onto the sign right now. And there we go. Before we get into this, while we're still in Unity, let's go up to Edit. Let's go up to Project Settings. And where it says Fire 2, we're going to change that to Interact. And then the positive button, we're just going to make E. We're just going to have no mouse button. And then down here where it says Fire 2, we're again going to change that to Interact. And instead of joystick button 1, we're going to make that joystick button 3. That would be Y on an Xbox controller. Once we make those changes, we can close that out. It'll autosave. And then we can open up the script. Again, I didn't have Visual Studio open, so give that a second to pop up and do its thing. All right. So we are going to need to add two things to this. Where it says using, we're going to change it to using. Unity engine.ui. And then, for whatever reason, it likes it above the Unity engine, but we're going to use using TMP PRO. All right. So I don't know why that's giving me an, oh, because I forgot to add it. Oh, I put two P's in there. That's why, actually. There we go. So now that we have those in there, we're actually going to get rid of all this. And we are going to put in a header, and it's going to say attributes. And then we're going to add a tooltip and reference to the text bubble, which we'll be adding all the bubbles and stuff after we do all that. We're going to serialize the field. Oh, forgot the little brackets. There we go. And then we're just going to make a private image text bubble. And then we're going to add another tooltip in here. It's going to be reference. Oh. So reference to the actual text. And serialize this field. And private TMP underscore text. And I'm going to explain what some of this stuff is here in just a few minutes. And lastly, tooltip, the text you want the object to say. And then private, actually, we're going to make it a little bit easier to read in the inspector by doing text area and then 310. Then we're going to do private string sign text. And then we're going to need two private bowls. So private bowl 1 is going to be is interacting. I really need a new keyboard. We're going to default that to false. And then another private, no, now it's doing it to the T's. What the heck? So another private bool, player in range, and also default that one to false. So we can save that and hop back over to Unity real fast, and we can start adding some of this stuff in. And I'll show you what this all means. So once this is done compiling here, we'll go to our sign. And first, that little text area that we did, did we not serialize that field? I don't think I serialized the field. 1 second here. There we go. I didn't serialize the field, that's why. So let's serialize that, save it, and then go back to Unity. There we go. So like that text area that I did with the 310, you can change those numbers around, by the way. But what that does is that makes the little text box bigger, so you can put whatever you want in that text, and you won't have this teeny tiny little area to work in. Well, now what we're going to do is we're actually going to add some of the things that we need, like the text bubble and the actual text itself. So if we go to our canvas, we're going to try to organize this a little bit because this can get pretty hectic. So under canvas, we're going to add an empty, and we're just going to put sliders. And we're going to move our health bar and our magic bars there. We'll switch over to game view just to make sure they didn't change. They didn't. Perfect. Now under canvas, what we're going to do is we are going to add a UI image, and we're going to name this text text bubble. So with text bubble selected, what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to go to our art. I believe it's under world and objects, yes. So in our objects, we're going to have to go to our sprite editor. And this is the bubble that we want to use. But as you can see, it is broken up into 16s. We need it to be one giant one. So we're going to delete all of these extra little squares, leave one of them, and then we're going to expand it to the size of the text bubble that we want to use. And then these little green handles, let's zoom in a little bit. This is how we slice. We went over slicing on a couple videos. I just punched in the numbers. This one, we're actually going to drag the slice. So make sure you get your little crosshair, or your little cursor, I should say, over the green square. Click, and you're going to drag down until this line is just below this last little pixel square here. We're going to do the same thing from the bottom. And then from the sides, we're going to do the same thing, pulling it to about right there, and to about right there. Now, if you accidentally grabbed a little blue square, which I do it all the time, I'm honestly shocked that I didn't do it there. Oh, wait, we want to go to there. Sorry. There we go. Anyway, if you accidentally grab the blue square, all you have to do is just readjust the size back to where it belongs. You want to make sure that your overall size is 48 by 48, and our borders are 16s all across. Once that's done, we're going to hit apply. And then we're going to click on our text bubble again. We're going to open up the objects, and we're going to find that bubble, which I should be coming up to it. There it is. So with that bubble selected and our bubble found, we're going to click and we're going to drag that over to the source image, and we're going to drop that in there. We're going to double click on canvas to zoom out, and you can see there it is right in the middle, but we don't want that there. Instead, what we want to do is we want to move it to the Y position, -320. Our width, we want it at 1820. Our height, we want it at 440. And I do believe that's all we need to do. Oh, down here where it says image type and pixels per unit, we can change this to 0.16. That'll give us that pixelated edges, which is what we're looking for. And that's what it's going to look on the screen. Now, one thing that I like to do is if you go to color, I like to drop the alpha channel down to about 169, which is about 75% of full alpha. That way, it's somewhat see-through. So that way, if there's anything on the screen that the player may need to see behind that text bubble, they'll be able to see that. Anyway, once you have that done, we're going to right-click, and then we're going to make sure text bubble is selected. We're going to right-click. We are going to go back to UI, and we're going to add Text Mesh Pro. So Text Mesh Pro is TMP for short. That's what we were doing in code. It just tends to look a little bit better, and you may have to import it. So you just want to import the essentials. This, depending on your speed of your computer, could take a minute. All right. And once that's done, we're going to go to the text, and we're going to change that to bubble text. There we go. Over here in the settings, what we need to do is we need to auto size it. And we need to change the minimum. Actually, the minimum can stay 18, the max can stay 72. So if yours don't say 18 and 72, go ahead and change that. Since we have a white background, we need to change the text to black so it sticks out. And then the alignment, I like to center and center. Why did that not? Why does that look weird to me? Did I miss something here? Oh, Okay, the reason why it's not going full size is because we didn't change the actual size of the area where this goes to. So up at the top, we need to go and change this to 1720 for the width, and for the height, 340. And that'll cover the entire area within the text bubble there. And now that looks a lot better. So now that we have those done, what we need to do is go back to our sign. And where it says text bubble, we just need to bring over the text bubble. And where it says bubble text, we just need to bring over the bubble text. And then where it says sign text, you could put whatever it is that you want in here. I'm just going to say go north to the lake. And then once that is all said and done, we can go back to our script and we can finish our script up. So what we need to do now is we need to do a couple functions. So for here, we're going to do private void player interact. And we don't need to pass anything in for this. But anyway, in here, what we need to do is text bubble dot game object dot set active true. We also need to do bubble text dot text equals sign text, and then is interacting is true. Then what we need to do is a that's going to drive me crazy. Private void player not interacting. Player not interact. There we go. And then in here, all we need to do is text bubble dot game object dot set active to false, and is interacting false. Now we need to add some enters and exits. So in here, private void on trigger enter 2D. And remember, I like to change this to other. You can change it to whatever you want. But for me, I like other with one R. Anyway, so if other dot compare tag player, then what we're going to do is we're just going to add a debug log in here just to make sure that the player entered range, and then player in range is going to be true. And then we need to do an exit. So private void on trigger not enter, and that's not even 2D. Let's try this again. On trigger exit 2D collider 2D other, again with one R. All right, now that we have that, if other dot, oh God, there we go. No, not composite. See, that's got me all flustered. If other dot compare, Jesus, is getting ridiculous. Compare tag player. Now it's adding 3 R's. Then debug dot log player left range, and then player in range equals false. There's one more thing we need to do, and that is if is interacting, then we need to go player not interacting, or player not interact. Now that all that is done, in order for this to actually work properly, we need to do an update. So up here, we are going to add a private void update. And then if player is in range and input dot get button down is interact, then what we need to do is a few different things. We need to check to see if the player is interacting. And if the player is not interacting, then we need to do player interact. Otherwise, or else, if the player is interacting, then player not interact. And that should be all that we need to do. So let's make sure we save that. Let's hop back over to Unity. Unity is going to compile everything. And I want to make sure that I did rename these to interact. Yeah, interact, perfect. All right. So before we do anything, we want to go to the text bubble and we want to default it to be off. And then we'll hit play. And we'll move around. We'll ignore the slime. If he gets in our way, then we'll kill him. So down here it says players entered range, so I'm going to hit the E button, and there it is, go north to the lake. If I hit E again, it goes away. If I hit E one more time, it does come back up, but if I walk out of range, it automatically shuts off. So that is how we do an interactable object. Later we can add, like, if this pulls up, then we can pause it so that way the player can't move or the enemies can't move until we unpause. And we can do a couple other things as well. That's the reason why I added the text and all that other stuff into the script, because we can do all different kind of things. But again, we'll get to that when we go to polish a few things. But we have a working interactable object that will say whatever it is that you want it to say whenever the player interacts with it. And that was the whole purpose of this video, so I'm going to stop here. If you all liked it, and if it was helpful for you, make sure you give it the big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I have videos like this coming out all the time. And as always, thank you. Have a good day, and I will see you on the next one.